What's our time hack?
About an hour. So we are live, everybody. I want to thank you all for coming out. Today I'm joined by my good friends Cameo and Sabrina. We're going to hear a lot more about them, as we progress through the show. But today is a very, very important topic that we're going to discuss. It is the mental health journey, but with a focus on domestic violence. So I want to thank Cameo and Sabrina in advance for being willing to go through this. I know it might not be easy, um, but we're gonna dive into it, and it's gonna be really good. It's gonna be really impactful, and hopefully it'll provide the motivation for someone else to get whatever they may need to get through some things. Woo! So where should we start? Who wants to go first? So Camille, you're in the middle. Tell us a little bit about you.
All right, going off the cuff. Ty, I've known you for how long? Close to 20 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
very close. Yeah.
yeah. So Ty and I worked together a long, long time ago as subs under Northrop Grumman for a small company doing defense work. Have continued to evolve our relationship to the point I was his supervisor in the military at one point in time. I'm still doing government contract work here in the DC area. And on the personal side, I've had a very colorful journey. I had a very traditional upbringing, pretty solid Midwest home, parents married almost 50 years. And somehow I couldn't model that as an adult, and I've been through some things that we can certainly talk about. So yeah, I have two children that I adore and love, and have been trying to get out of DC since I've been here, but still here to stay.
Okay, Sabrina.
My name is Sabrina Seoul, and I was actually on Ready to Love with Tyrone for season 4. And many of you that have watched the show knows that I was born in Korea. My father is Creole, my mother is Korean, and I came to the United States about when I was 5 years old, and it's been challenging ever since. Growing up, it's been, I wasn't an Army brat. My father was in the military as well, and that was one of the things that Tyrone and we connected on as well. My father was in the Army, and he was in the Army for about 32 years. And one thing about me in my childhood is I actually was not an Army brat. Like, I didn't travel with my dad. I wasn't one of the kids that went to this country and this country and this country. Like, I wasn't blessed to have that experience as other kids did. My mother and we pretty much landed in Virginia one day, and we just never left while my dad was out serving our country. And throughout my life, it's so crazy because I look back and I'm one of those people where I look back at my life and I think to myself, like, why me? Why is this happening to me? Why am I going through all these issues, these challenges and situations throughout my life? But I had to get here in this place in my life for me to realize that I had to go through the things that I needed to go through in my younger years, because it allowed me to become the person that I am today, for me to be able to sit here and to be able to tell my stories, because I feel like I am here to help someone get over what they're going through right now. Life isn't easy. We have this persona, and society has made us to believe that life is supposed to be this way and it's supposed to be that way, when it's supposed to be actually no way. It's supposed to be your way. So I just feel like that I was blessed to be able to have the courage and the voice that I have now to be able to spread awareness about those things.
Okay. I have some questions to start with for Cameo, and a lot of my questions are basically going to be, to add, an educational perspective to the listeners, right? So starting with Cameo, when it comes to the domestic violence, at what point did you start to see signs, and do you feel like there was doubt there, or was it clear?
No, I think, so I've been in, unfortunately, more than one relationship that involved domestic abuse. One was pretty physical. wildly violent. And I'll speak not as much to that one and more to the more recent, because it was not as evident, right? So I think traditionally people think of domestic violence like you're going to see bruises, right? You're going to know that you were, punched in the face or thrown around. And I think that the level at which I recently experienced is just, it's so much more deceptive because I was with a narcissist, and malignant narcissist, borderline sociopath, and it is a very slow turn on your mind. And so for you to say like, oh, did you see it right away? Well, so yes, there was like he cheated right within the first 6 months. So normal people, for you out there, if you've experienced this, just leave, like leave. And it just, it evolved into other things. And I think that as you start to have feelings for someone and you're like, okay, like I can make this exception, not exception, like it's not okay, but I'm going to continue to drive forward because I believe in you. I believe in us. We have this bond. We have this connection. And it's all just, I learned well after the fact that unfortunately it was all just kind of an act. And I think there's so many things from a manipulative perspective that you fail to realize when you're in it, right? There's things like trauma bonding that keep you tied to it. There's things like codependency, right? In my case, fear of failure. Your lines get crossed in terms of what the truth really is, right? There's gaslighting 24/7. I'll give you a recent example. I was actually talking to my mom about this morning. My ex accused my mom, not to her face, like to me, to say that my mom had a drinking problem. And my mother does not, to be very clear, but she had been with friends of ours camping last summer and like tripped and fell, right, and hurt herself. And, she was drunk. We all get drunk. We all go out. We all have a good time. But there's obviously, limitations. And so in this process of my ex saying like, hey, your mom has this drinking problem, I started to kind of panic, right? I've known my mom 40 years, for crying out loud. I've never known her to have any problem with alcohol. So I called my dad and I was like, hey, are there things going on at home that like you want to talk about? And my dad's like, what? And I'm like, mom fell, she hurt herself, like she's been drinking. And my dad's like, she got stupid. What do you want me to say? And I'm like, okay, but is everything okay? Like, do you want to tell me? Because I understand you had a conversation with my ex and this was something you guys talked about. And my dad's like, I guess I don't recall having that conversation. And so I share that story because I was so wrapped into this. I was so, whether it was the trauma bonding or what I thought I called love or what it was, made me doubt my own mother I've known for 40 years. To think like, oh my God, like maybe there is a problem. And, maybe this problem is coming from me and from my family and from all these things. And it's hard, right? It's really hard to try to come out of that. So I think trauma bonding is huge. And I think it's really, really tough to see. And I think when you talk about, do you see it instantaneous? If you know the story about a frog in boiling water. So they say like, if you throw a frog in boiling water, he'll jump out, right? But if you put the frog in the water and you slowly turn it up, he'll boil to death. Yeah. And essentially, I think that's what happens in this type of domestic violence, domestic abuse in terms of relationships.
Okay. Sabrina, same question.
So I've had a few episodes of domestic violence, and it's so crazy because a lot of people, they do say to you, they're like, and it's easier to say than to actually do, to say, well, just get out of it. Like, he's not treating you good. He doesn't really love you. Like, why are you still there? Like, don't you see the signs? And, we as the person getting abused, it's not like we don't see it, but it's a lot of different reasons why we don't get out of it. Because, we're smart individuals, we're not always the sharpest knife in the drawers, but at the end of the day, we're smart enough to detect when something isn't right for us. But sometimes we do choose to stay. It's just the reality of the situation. So there have been more than one occasions where I have been in a situation where I was in a domestic violence situation. And the very first time that it happened was it started when I was 15 years old. And I was still a child at that point. I was dating someone, he was probably about 17 and I was 15. And at that point, I was so young. I didn't know what domestic violence was. I didn't know what narcissism was. I didn't know what mental abuse was. I didn't know what, I just didn't know. I was too young. I was a child. And one of the things that I always say, especially when I do public speaking, is I wish I had a me growing up. Like, I wish I had a mentor or someone there, because I couldn't turn to my parents because they just were not those people in my life that I could turn to and have those kind of conversations with, where they pulled me to the side and they wanted to teach me right and wrong, love and what's not love, and what's good and what's bad. Like, I just didn't have parents like that. So I had to figure everything out on my own. When I was 15 years old, I dated this gentleman, and it's such a long story, but we're going to shorten it up. He definitely manipulated me in the situation. He was for the streets, and I was at the place in my life where I liked it, keeping all the way 100. And, and I did deal with him. We were in high school, and I did things that I shouldn't have been doing as a 15-year-old, sneaking out of the house, drinking, smoking weed. I just was, I was doing those things because that was the environment I allowed myself to be in, that I placed myself in, being around this gentleman. And, he was about that life. One day, he put his hands on me because he pretty much was like, are you cheating on me? Are you cheating on me? And I was like, just out of the blue. And I had skipped school. I was at home with him. His mom actually was a nurse, and she would go pick me up from school to allow me to skip school, would take me back to her house to go be with her son for the day. She would leave work as a nurse, pick me back up from her house to take me back to school so I could get on the bus to go back home. Like, that was the environment. You understand what I'm saying? So sometimes it's like, it's the environment that you're also in and what other people will allow you to go through. That's why I always say, I wish I had a me growing up, because I wouldn't have allowed that as the parent. What happened was one day, I guess because of his lifestyle, he decided to go rob a department store. He ran his car through a department store, the front door of how like at the mall, but at this time, and this was when I was 15, so this was a very, very long time ago. This was about 30 years ago, where it was a store called Brindle's, and it was kind of like an outside shopping center, but the Brindle's was kind of like an upscale Kmart, I guess you can say. So when you walk through the front of the store, right there was the jewelry section. It was like the jewelry, the counters and everything, all the jewelry was in the front. So he literally ran his car through the front door, smashed everything up, went in, stole the jewelry, him and two other men. They hopped back in the car, went up the street, went into a bank. They robbed the bank. And then pretty much like later on, he was like, hey, what are you doing? He was like, let me tell you what I just did. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, are you serious? Like, you're crazy. Anyway, the police ended up catching him. I was so grateful that the police caught him. I was grateful that he put himself in that position, because at this point now I felt like I was safe. I felt like I don't have to worry if he's going to beat me today. Is he going to snap at me today? I just didn't know what, I just knew at that point he was away from me and he couldn't touch me. Because I always felt like if I didn't abide by what he wanted me to do, or I didn't agree with the things that he wanted me to do, then he would retaliate. Because in my head, even at 15, like I said earlier, I was smart enough to know that this man was crazy. And he would have done something to me at 15. As time went on, he was in jail for about 3 or 4 years for that incident. And I remember he contacted me. He saw my car at the college that I was going to at the time. The car that I had was the only car like that around. And he put a little card in my windshield, and he was like, "Hey, it's me. When you get this, give me a call." And I knew that it was him. Of course, he put his name on the card, but as soon as I saw the handwriting, before I even saw his name, I was like, that's him. I called him, and I felt like I needed closure. I felt like I needed closure because he did used to call me collect when he was in jail. And he used to always tell me, if you leave me when I'm in jail, I'm going to kill you. I believed him. At that point, I was maybe 20, because he had been out for a little bit of time, and then he found me. So I was scared. I didn't know how to feel, but I knew that I needed closure. And I said that I would meet him as long as his mother was there. I did go meet him. I pretty much told him, I was like, great job. He's like, I'm in the Bible. He's like, I got, I was locked up, but, I'm a church man now. He's like, I really had to find myself. I was locked up for this amount of years, and I'm a changed man. I'm a different person. I really would like to see where we could go. And I just was like, yeah, I'm good. I was like, I'm good. Not more than 6 months later, at the time that when he and I were dating, when I was 15 years old, there was another woman that he was sleeping with, ironically, and dealing with at the time while we were in high school. And he was cheating on me with her. So after I told him I was good, about 6 months after that, I guess she decided to, it'd been like 4 or 5 years. So of course she was dealing with other people. So when he got out of jail and he found out that she was dealing with other people as well, he was upset. And he went to her house and he shot her twice. She was brain dead for about 6 months. And then eventually they just pulled the plug. So he murdered her. He's in jail right now for life for killing her. And all this, I'm telling you, was on the news. So this is public information, and I remember, like, everyone knew that, the people that knew that I was dealing with him was like, Sabrina, that could have been you, like that could have been you, Sabrina. You could not be here right now. And I'm just like, I know. So then and I'm going to cut the story short, and then we're going to go back to you, Tyrone and Cameo, but just to follow up. And it saddens me so much to think that later on, when I become an adult woman, not more than 6 years ago, I go through the exact same thing almost again, but we'll move forward with that a little bit later. But that was the beginning of me being introduced to domestic violence at such a young age. And that's why I say I'm here to definitely share my stories to help the next person.
Yes, you both touched on some really good points. The fear, the trauma bonding. So I'm going to bring this to Cameo because Sabrina mentioned a point about wishing that she had a her. So Cameo, tell us a little bit about your story, and then if you can, expand on the point where, if you had a Sabrina, how would you have wanted someone to approach you about this? You're muted.
You're muted. Can't hear you.
Sorry, let's try that again. So both of my relationships that were wildly abusive, both men were military. No offense, obviously I'm still in. But the one was, well, both really, I think, were certified crazy. No one killed anyone, Sabrina. Thankfully, I didn't go through that. But the first relationship that I was in, I did have a gun, pulled to my head. I was put up against a wall in a chokehold. And still gets me to this day, because I just remember in that moment when people are like, to your point where you're like, how do you let something get this far? Like, how did you not stop this prior to, and I didn't have like a crazy troubled childhood. I didn't have any of these things, but there's definitely an element of me that's, I don't know, addicted to the crazy. I mean, to your point, like when you were 15, like, hey, let me go out, let me do these things, whatever. But I remember in that moment, just wondering if I called my mom and told her that I loved her that day, because I didn't know if that was going to be it. And you know, in the present relationship, not present, in the most recent, I should say, relationship, you know, it wasn't that far. Like I said, it was much more manipulative. And so it wasn't, you know, people say, how did you let it get that far? That was a slow creep. You know, with the other one, it was constant highs, constant lows, constant highs, constant lows. And I didn't call, you know, do I wish that I had a Sabrina? Yeah, I think that's the same answer. There's a really good friend that I'm friends with to this day. And I remember telling her whatever the latest argument was at that point in time. I certainly didn't share a lot about getting the gun pulled on me, but certainly, you know, the physical aspect and the, you know, screaming at me and cursing at me and accusing me of cheating and all these things, which I was never doing. And I remember her asking me point blank, if you had a friend come to you and tell you exactly what you're telling me, what would you say to them? And I was like, get out. And she's like, well, then you have your answer. And I didn't leave. What ended up happening was he was in a elite unit with the military. And because I started to obviously visit, being in military capacity myself, I started to visit his chain of command and knew how to navigate the waters pretty well. And because he was like kind of causing trouble and bringing darkness upon what was supposed to be, you know, an elite force, they deployed him. And so when that happened, that's when I took the opportunity to pack everything in the house and put it in his car and drove his car down to Quantico and threw the keys at the family readiness group and was like, I'm out. I went to the Alexandria, Virginia Law Library and studied on how to do your own divorce because I didn't have money to hire anyone. And I did all the paperwork and filed everything and did everything completely on my own and left the papers in his car for when he got back. Did you have another question, Tyrone? I might have missed the answer. You're muted.
Sorry about that. No, but basically, you know, I had a feeling I was going to get all emotional too. I'm like that sometimes. So I'm trying to hold it together on my end. Yeah, I had a follow-up question about, you know, trying to identify the threshold to leave. And also, you know, I would imagine that, you know, you are protecting your relationship, you know, in this moment. You may be protecting what people may think about him. So just kind of touching back on the fact that being approached, you know, and having someone ask you if you need help, because that would mean that there's something clearly wrong that people can see from the outside. And, you know, going back to protecting the relationship, you will want people to think that everything is, you know, good. And you may not think you have hit that threshold yet, but obviously someone else does. Let's talk about that for a second. Like,
so I think, you know, it's crazy. Sabrina started off talking about how she was, you know, in this when she was younger and then came upon it again. Right. So similar situation, right? I mean, the first one that was wildly abusive, I was like 20, I want to say like 26. And then the most recent, I was like 37, right? 10 years later and back in the same situation. And I think that, you know, on the backside of it, where I am today, to Sabrina's point, I guess I had the strength to get through this, to be able to share this story and to be able to hopefully inspire others and know that you're not alone. And also, and I don't know, Sabrina, for you, but I know for me, right, putting on this face every day for everyone was important to me. We all have ego. We all have pride. We all have busted our butts to get where we are. And I, you know, I lived from the outside what people would see as a very glamorous life. I mean, I had, you know, part of narcissistic abuse, there's like love bombing, right? And so I've world traveled, you know, I've got all the bags and all the jewelry and all the crap that, quite frankly, the one thing that I was looking for, which was just someone to love, like the relationship that I was modeled by my parents. And it was the one thing I was missing. But then you have, like, to your point, what you want to protect, right? You have your career and your image and your ego and your, all these things that everyone sees, like, dang, man, like you really got your stuff together. And it's just, you can only live that lie for so long. And I think it's important. I don't think anyone necessarily saw. There was a very small handful of close girlfriends that absolutely knew what was going on. And they were very encouraging. And again, to Sabrina's point, in terms of, like, I think God continues to bring situations into your life until you learn from them, right? So rather than take a victim mindset of, like, why me, why me, why me, right? You have to figure out, what is it that you have not learned yet in these situations that's putting you back there. And I think I speak for both of us in saying that getting through these situations is exactly what we had to do to be the women that we are today, to share that strength and to share our stories with other people. And I know when I went public on social media with my situation, the amount of people that reached out to me from a DM perspective was astonishing, because it's so many people that saw me in the same light, right? Like, wow, what a great life. What a happy family. This is amazing. Look at all these great things. And then on the back, they're like, Cameo, I can't believe you talked about this. Like, more power to you. I can't believe you shared this. I can't, like, the amount of strength. I could never say anything. Nobody knows about my situation. How do you do it? Where do you find the strength? And it's because of these situations that I mean, I'm not going to say that they just happenstance. Like, I put myself in these situations, and I didn't necessarily take myself out of them when I knew I had a joke, actually, I just posted it. Like, I saw all the red flags, but I thought it was a circus, right? Like, so, yeah, it's tough. And I think that, I think the biggest thing is that it can happen to anyone. I think that there's just this stifled perception of domestic violence and being, people that are, underprivileged, or, they don't have a job, or they're living on welfare, or, like, that's where all this stuff happens. And it's not true. It is not true. This stuff happens, to your neighbor down the street, to your best friend that you've known for years who stays silent. And, it just takes that, like, take the time to really know someone. And if there's just even something that's remotely off, just say, like, listen, I had a ton of friends that I'm so thankful for that were like, at any point in time, if you need to pick up your kids and just come to my house for a week, for a night, for a month, I don't care, Cameo, just come and stay with me.
Yeah. Good points. Sabrina, talk about the threshold. And there was mention of the fear, when you both receive death threats. So in those moments, right? Like, does that fear ever go away? One. And can you talk about that for a little bit?
So it's so crazy to hear that Cameo had the gun up to her head, because that actually happened with me with the same gentleman. And that's one of the things that how I usually ironically start the story off with, and I didn't say it this time, but when he was accusing me of cheating on him, he put a gun up to my head, and he was like, "Are you cheating on me? Are you cheating on me?" And I remember slapping his hand away, and the gun went off right in my face, and it went off out the window. And that bullet actually could have hit someone too, but that's how reckless he was. But that's the lifestyle, obviously, that I wanted to live as well. Very reckless lifestyle, because I decided to, deal with him. But then at that point, and it's like you said, the threshold, but I think at that point, I was just scared. And in every situation, and that's what a lot of people need to also understand, domestic violence, it's not the same story for everyone. Everyone has a different story. Okay. So this story over here might be where she's afraid to leave. This story here might be where she just doesn't want to leave. This story here is she's staying because it's stability, because he has money, or he has, you know, this and X, Y, and Z, and he's providing this type of lifestyle. So she's like, screw it, you know. And I see that a lot, because with the lifestyle that I lived prior to me being in mommy mode and this regular cookie cutter, no, it's definitely not cookie cutter, but it's just outside of all the glam that you guys see on my Instagram and social media. Like, I'm just like a real single mom. Like, you know, I'm outside working in the yard. I take the trash out, you know, I'm fixing my toilet and, you know, going buying groceries. You know, but at the end of the day, the lifestyle that I lived previously, I was around a lot of entertainers, a lot of athletes, and a lot of women that I knew at the time were dealing with athletes, and they stuck around because of the lifestyle that they were providing for these women. And I'm just like, I don't care how much money he has. I don't care what team he plays for. And that's probably why I didn't end up with an athlete, honestly, because I saw exactly how damaging that these women were becoming, and I just didn't want to be that woman. That's just like me staying in that relationship when I was 17, 15 years old. It wouldn't have been, it's just I was a kid and he didn't have any money and he didn't have the cars and he didn't have the lifestyle, but I would have still ended up being that damaged woman, you know. And that's what, you know, a lot of people don't understand, is that domestic violence, it doesn't have a face. It doesn't look like anything. You can't place it anywhere. And it's so unfortunate. And I'm going to put this out here too. During the pandemic, and when that hit, the rise on domestic violence situations and abuse and abuse towards children rose so high, because these people were stuck in the house and they had to deal with these situations with no one helping. They didn't know where to go. And a lot of people don't know that as well. And during those times, I tried to speak about it as much as I could, because it was a lot of people, men and women, going through these things during the pandemic, and nobody even knew. The deaths because of domestic violence even rose, you know? And I don't think people really understand the severity of these cases and what domestic violence really is until it happens to you right next door, like you were saying, or it happens to someone that's a family member of yours. Then it becomes real, you know, which is unfortunate. And that's why I'm so glad that we have podcasts like this. We have people like Cameo, myself, and you, Tyrone, that has this platform to be able to speak about it. And for me to have the platform that I have now, had it not be the show, but because of the show, it allowed me to gain more followers. It allowed me to gain people that actually follow me, not because of my popularity now, but because they genuinely really like me as a person. So maybe now, since I have this platform, they will hear me out. And so I can speak to them, just like I needed someone to speak to me, that little 15-year-old Sabrina, to say, it's okay. It's okay to leave. Be strong to leave. What do you need from me that I can give to you to help you leave? What is it? You know? So I guess I hope I answered your question.
Yeah. I want to try to take it back a little bit. So this question is for Cameo. One of the things that I figured out, even with doing some research on myself, is that sometimes your childhood could affect your mindset. How do you feel about that? Like the way that your upbringing was, and do you feel like there's a commonality in that with other people that you are aware of going through the same thing?
So I'll say on my end, I've spent the majority of probably the last 2 to 3 years really digging into this, because I never understood, when Sabrina talked earlier, like, why me? Why is this happening to me? And I never had any of those ties. All the things that people talk about when they're like, oh, my dad left, or so-and-so was an alcoholic, or I was abused or touched when I was younger, or I had none of that. I legitimately had your little white girl from the Midwest, storybook, bubble upbringing, small town, love from all sides. Like, I really felt, I didn't know that I was privileged. I look back now, like, what a wonderful way to grow up. And so to be an adult and have a complete catastrophe of adult life, basically essentially from college, or maybe late high school boyfriend to today, um, it, I couldn't put those pieces together, other than I knew that I was put in this world and I'm here today to be able to give this message to other people. And had I not gone through these things, I would not be able to stand from a point of strength and to be able to say, like, yeah, I think there is links, right? I think the person that, that I was most recently with had wild childhood trauma, raised by an alcoholic, complete abandonment as a kid, right? Deployed multiple times and suffered from PTSD. So those things from a mental illness perspective have obviously carried over, and it's something that he hasn't been able to, I guess, I don't want to say cure himself from, but chose not to treat, right? Or treated it in ways with prostitutes, treated it in ways of, one night stands, alcohol, cocaine, you name it, right? Those were his outs rather than the healthy route. So I think that, yes, there are ties to that. I'm personally that it wasn't mine. And the most recent relationship in terms of my parents, they were heartbroken because they saw the trips, the worldwide travel, the love, the things. What they didn't see is, because even from my own parents, right, I kept this entire life a secret, knowing that there were prostitutes, knowing that there were alcohol addiction issues, knowing that we had gone to 3 marital therapists, knowing that he had been in rehab. And when I called my parents, my grandfather passed away and I was flying home, and my mom said, hey, is he coming? And I was like, no, I don't think he's going to make it. And she's like, oh, work? And I was like, he's in jail. And my mom's like, what? And I'm like, it kind of happens when you choke somebody out, you go to jail. And my mom is like, what? No belief. Zero belief, because of the persona that he had put on, right? And zero belief because also the persona that I put on and all the things that I kept to myself to protect all those things. So I did not have a troubled childhood. I didn't have any of the things that, lead people down these paths, but I've managed to somehow connect myself with people who had those pasts. I don't know why, but I definitely see, I see the connections, and I see the trouble, and I see the different ways that people choose to cope with those things. And it's really hard to watch.
Okay. Sabrina, you got an answer for that one, and I'm going to bring it right back to you with a follow-up question.
So with me, okay, so my parents were married for 53 years. And domestic violence, abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, none of that existed in my home. The only thing that pretty much existed in my home was my dad. He was a very stern man. He was a man that, clean your room, go grab the trash, go do this, go do your homework. So that was the kind of life that I lived with my dad. And my mom was just kind of like, okay. And listen to your dad. And so it was that kind of, but still, I still had even though my dad and I weren't that close, I still knew he loved me, and I just knew that was just the kind of man that he was. And it wasn't like that all the time. Of course, he would have his good days, and or not good days, but he would have the days where it's like he would turn on the music and his blues, and, we would be dancing and barbecuing outside, so it wasn't that life like all the time. So I don't want to give that perception of he just was like this, angry man all the time. I feel like, of course, because I didn't maybe have the relationship that I had with my parents, that absolutely played a part in what I was probably looking for out in the streets. Now, even though I decided to deal with people that were abusers, And just like Cameo said, it wasn't necessarily like it was from her life. It just was, those were the people that she ended up with. And that's kind of how I feel too. But I felt like, and this is just from me doing like mental health assessments for myself, and becoming more spiritual, I realized that I was a healer. And I realized that I have this energy about me that people love. I can walk into a room and not say anything and people will gravitate towards me. That's something that I just didn't want to believe for a long time, because I felt like it sounded conceited, or it felt like I was, arrogant, or I feel like, no, that's the truth. That's what it is. I'm going to accept it. I definitely agree with what everyone was saying all my life. I just didn't want to believe it, because of the childhood that I had. And I had, I was bullied as a child, and I was beat up, and mean things were done to me. And I think what it was the devils of the universe, and the energy vampires were pretty much trying to show me throughout my whole life that you're not her. You will never be her. You are nothing. You will always amount to nothing. And I think what it was is because I did have that light, and that negative part of the universe never wanted me to see it, because they never wanted me to become the person that I am today, to be able to do the things that I'm doing right now. So I feel like that I was that person with that light, and those people that was missing something within them, they gravitated towards me. And people that are abusers are obviously missing something. Like they act this way, and they are mentally abusive and physically abusive. And some people just have a mean tongue. They will never say anything or do anything physically to harm you, but when they open up their mouth, they're harming you, and it's just as bad as them putting their hands on you. And that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand too. Like, you could be abused and the person never even touches you. And with me being bullied pretty much all my life, that's something that I had to understand too, because like I said, I didn't have anyone there to explain those things to me, and what it was. And I'm just glad that I am at a place now to let people know, sometimes, boo, it ain't you, okay? It's not you. It's the people that see your energy. They see that light inside of you. They see that love inside of you, and they gravitate towards that, because they are so empty inside that they're trying to fill their cup with your love. And while they're doing that, they're sucking everything that you have, the life, the energy, the love that you have, away from you, because they're trying to pour it into them. So that's what I feel.
I think that's a really good point. I think that's huge. And I think that speaks to, like you said, you got bullied, when you were younger, but from the family dynamic perspective, that's just it. I had that full circumference of like wholesomeness, that people are like, whatever I'm missing, I know she can give it to me. And because you have that huge heart, and because you have that stability, and because you're like, of course I can give this to you. I want to give this to you. I want you to be happy. I want you to experience what I've experienced. Like, what a lovely place this is to be. And in that process, you deplete your own self, and you lose your own self. And then it gets to the point where I talked earlier about you're trauma bonded, and now you don't even know which end is up anymore.
I have one more quick question, and we're going to focus on the positive after that. So the question is, what was the turning point for you all, for you to finally say, I'm done? Who wants to go first?
Sorry. So the first one I told you, he got deployed. So that gave me a window of opportunity. And the second one, he got locked up. But what's crazy is that even after he got locked up, I was like, okay, you're going to go to rehab, and I'm going to be here for you. We're going to do this. I got it. He was on his knees, I'm an addict. I'm this, I'm that. I want your help. He called my dad. He apologized. And that night he slept with another woman. And, he came out of rehab, and I won't disclose. I'll just say I'm a very good OSINT person. For those that don't know what that is, it's open source intelligence. And I did some digging and figured out he flew another woman to New Orleans for the weekend, like right out of rehab. And I found her. And she was like, "Who are you? Why are you contacting me?" Because I found her through her kids, because kids are on social media. And she was like, "How dare you contact my family?" And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, I need you to know why I'm contacting you. Like, you could be in a world of hurt. I'm not bitter. I'm not mad. I don't want him back. I don't want any, but you need to know what you're putting yourself into. And, this kind of speaks to the trauma loop. This poor woman had been married 30 years in a wildly abusive relationship. She left her husband 3 times. The final time was 2019. And the first person that she let her guard down for was my ex, just to go right back in that loop. So, the turning point, unfortunately, Tyrone, for me, was a window of opportunity where I'm like, okay, they're not coming back, right? So I put a protective order in place for 2 years. And I'm like, now I can rid myself of all of this. And it was not until I nearly lost my life from strangulation that I said, okay, it's enough. And this was the second time that it happened with him, by the way.
Oof. I applaud y'all. Sabrina, same question.
Well, of course, when I was younger, we all knew that it was enough for me. I wanted out. I was so happy that he had gotten locked up from his shenanigans. But let me touch a little bit on, to answer your question and for it to make sense, is when I got older, I was placed in that position again. About 6 years ago, I dated this gentleman. And then this is where the gaslighting happened. This is where the narcissism happened. This is where the trauma bonding started to happen. This is where I had entered a new stage of abuse, but this was the type of abuse I had never experienced before. So it was all brand new to me. Before, it was all like just physical, when I was younger. So, in my older years, I didn't know none of this stuff existed. I had never really dated, men like that, just because from up until that time and from all these years, maybe 15 years had gone by, I really wasn't in a serious relationship. I was single for the most part. I had my situationships, but I knew that, like, I really knew what I wanted growing up. And what I wanted growing up was, I didn't want a serious relationship and I didn't want kids, period, point blank. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to make a lot of money and I wanted to enjoy life. That's just how it was. That was the life that I chose for myself. So when it was time for me to finally get into relationships, one of the first relationships I get into is with a narcissist that, gaslit me, that love bombed me, that, he was damn near perfect, honey, and then his true colors started to show. And he, had all the abuse was there. Like he verbally abused me. He mentally abused me. He did all those things after all the gaslighting ladies, all the, the narcissistic ways that he had, all that had to happen. And then the abuse started after that. Like, he had to hook me. And once I was hooked, because, he had money, he showered me with gifts, with, he cooked for me breakfast in bed and, took me shopping and took me on trips and bought me designer things. I mean, it was amazing. And then one day I was in my room, and at this time my daughter was about 3 years old. And I remember, and I'd already started to see the signs, like, something is not right. Yeah, something's just not right with him. And at this time, I'm an adult, guys. So I remember hearing him have a conversation with my 3-year-old daughter. He was at my house, and he was spending time with she and I. And I remember I heard her laughing, running in and out of the room, and she was laughing. And I heard, And he was like, if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. And she was like, ha, 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 I guess like a game of tag. So he was like, if you hit me again, I'm going to hit you back. Mind you, she's only 3 years old. So I heard, but then I heard, and she ran out of the room crying. And I heard this with my own ears. It took everything out of me not to go grab a knife out of the drawer in the kitchen and attack this man. Like, did he just put his hands on my daughter? And I'm thinking to myself, this was a little game of tag with a 3-year-old, and this is how he reacts? Red freaking flag. Red flag. So at that point, at that very moment, I said to myself, I need to get out of this. Something is wrong. I was mature enough at this point to know I was in my 40s. I just turned 40, I think. It's time for me to go. I remember towards the end of the relationship, and this was only like maybe about a week or two later, after he had just put his hands on my daughter. And I was like, I got to find a way to get out. I got to find a way to get out. And I remember right after that, later on that night, before I moved forward, later on that night, he and I got into an argument, and I had a conversation with him. I was like, I heard what you did to my daughter. I didn't appreciate you doing that. Well, I told her I was going to hit her. I'm like, she's 3 years old. What makes you think in your brain that was okay? Like seriously, like, let's have this conversation. He didn't like that I wanted to have this conversation. And he literally took me, we got into a really heated argument. He took me, he choked me up. He was 6'5". So he was a big guy. So he literally put his hands around my neck, lifted me up. My toes were like this on the ground. And he was like, don't you ever talk to me like that again. I knew that I was done. The next morning I had to take her to daycare. I was driving his car, and I remember we had to get gas. We pulled around to the gas tank, and he was like, pull in there. I was like, I don't want to pull in there. I'm going to pull in there. Because I didn't pull in there, he literally cursed me out. Why the F didn't you? I told you that. I was like, this all happened within a 2-week period, back to back to back. And I'm like, what is going on? Mind you, this was the perfect man, remember? This was the perfect man. I remember getting out of his car. I remember slamming his door, and he was like, this is $100,000 car. And I was like, I have to get away from him. I remember we were at the gas station. I slammed the door. I got out. I grabbed my purse. I just started to walk away. Do you know this man came up behind me, had a closed fist, literally went around, punched me smack dead in my face. All this was bruised. My eyes were swollen. I had a black eye. I had on some rings. One of the rings was like a glass fashion ring. I fell to the ground. My knees were scraped up. Blood everywhere. The ring cut my hand. I had blood all in my hands. Mind you, this happened in broad daylight at a gas station right down the street from my house, from me just dropping my daughter off. So to answer your question, Tyrone, now, and mind you, this was just 6 years ago, I'm just at a stage in my life where, and it took me a long time to get to where I am right now. I know my worth. I love myself so much, so much. I know what I deserve. I know the difference between right and wrong. I know what abuse is. It took me almost 15 years. And that's why when I tell people are like, oh, she's so full of herself. She's just so, no, you're absolutely right. I am. Because if I'm not going to be full of me, who's going to be full of me? Who's going to love me that much? Who's going to love me enough to let me know, Sabrina, that's not right. This is not love. This is not true. They're not honest. Who's going to be able to, I need to be able to tell myself that. So it took me 15 years of healing. 15 years. This crap didn't happen overnight, people. 15 years of healing for me to get to exactly where I am now, to know the difference between what is real, what isn't, what is love, what isn't, what is good, what is bad. So when I see those signs, it's easy for me to walk away. When I'm placed in a position where I feel like that this ain't love, it's easy for me to walk away, to leave it alone. And I never look back. I don't care how good it looks. My glasses are not rose colored. Not anymore. And I refuse.
You touched on a good word, because I was going to ask that follow-up question, the healing. Cameo, your turn. What are some things that you did or are doing to heal?
Yeah, I was going to say probably more current than past. I think that it still is it's an everyday commitment and process. There's no question. I think the hardest part coming from this is forget about trusting others, right? To Sabrina's point, like you can that's pretty easy to dismiss. The hard part is learning to trust yourself again, because you're like, I've made so many bad decisions. And when to this day, I talk to my therapist about it. Like, she's like, you've known crazy for so long. Like, it might not even be that you want that in your life. It's that you don't know anything different. And so to unlearn all of these things that you've been doing for so long is a really, really difficult path. And learning to trust yourself again, and learning how to choose you, right? To Sabrina's point, how to say, like, you know what? You're not worth it. Not you yourself, meaning somebody else. You meet somebody else and you're like, I'm good. Like, actually, I'm okay. It takes a lot to get to that point. I was very fortunate. I know we're tight on time. I was very, very fortunate in that I have a really good friend out on the West Coast who, long story short, met a healer from India. He had been out in LA. I met him a few years ago, and his sister was getting married. Her man was in rehab when my man was in rehab. And she's like, F that. I'm not taking him with me. Come with me to the wedding in India. And I was like, all right, let's go. I'm booking a ticket. I'm packing a bag. And her passport ended up being, it was expiring within 6 months. And so you can't come back in the country. And so she's like, girl, you're on your own. And I'm like, what? And so I left DC to go to Newark to connect to Delhi. Our flight out of DC left late. I missed my connection to Delhi. I'm talking to the healer. I'm like, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to miss the wedding. And in true healer fashion, he was basically like, listen, Cameo, you did not take this journey. You're not going to take this journey because of a wedding. You came here to heal. And I literally spent 6 days in India. I traveled to about 5 cities, 3 temples, and was exclusively with a healer that people wait 6 months to see. And so I say that with great appreciation and gratitude. I know that that's not a solution that everyone can take and just happenstance upon a healer, but I basically did eat, pray, love, packed my shit and was like, I'm out. And coming home, my parents had visited, and my mom was going to fly back because she was really worried about me. And she was like, when you got back from India, like, you're a different person. And it's seriously, between the mantras and, to each his own. I have no prejudice against religion of any sort. Whatever brings you joy, happiness, and light within yourself, I commend you. Make that dedication, make that time, learn how to meditate. Listen, I sit and meditate and have all the little I call them mind monkeys or mind gremlins in my head saying, you're not good enough, you're not fast enough, you're not going to make it, this is too hard. Whatever that is, right? Those things are all there. That's natural. That's everybody deals with those thoughts. But learning how to meditate and bringing that stuff back down and focusing on you again, not it can be in an arrogant way. It's fine, right? We are survivors, right? I don't like to say that I'm a victim. I'm a survivor of a lot of things, especially domestic abuse. And so it's an everyday commitment. It's an everyday process. And I think even doing events like this is part of that healing journey, because now you're able to share with someone else and say, like, you can do it. I've been there. I've done that. You have it within you. Trust me. I know it feels like your entire world is falling apart. Like everything has just been torn from underneath you. You don't know which way is up. You can't see that light at the tunnel. I promise that it's there. Just wake up, put your 2 feet on the ground, and start again every day.
I was gonna ask, what would you say to people that are in the same situation, but you touched on it. I want to give you all, want to give you both one more chance to say any last words to anyone that's in the audience, anyone that may listen to this at any point. What would you say? Sabrina. Sorry.
I was trying to take myself. I was going to say I'll go since Cameo just spoke. I was trying to take myself off mute. My apologies. So the thing is like anything in life, it's never too late to start healing. It's never too late to walk away. It's never too late to say, you know what, I'm going to start just loving me today. It's never too late. And I think that's where a lot of people, they pretty much take that from them. They take away the right to heal, because what happens is you wake up thinking to yourself, oh God, if I haven't done it by now, like why do it? Why do it? Because we get comfortable in those everyday routine that we're normally in. We get comfortable with the abuse. We get comfortable of not really loving ourselves that much. We just get comfortable of not waking up and deciding to put makeup on. We get comfortable with just wearing sweatpants and only showering 3 days because we're in the middle of a pandemic. You get comfortable. You get comfortable. Stop being comfortable, people. Stop being comfortable. You have to wake up one day and say, you know what? Life sucks. But guess what? I'm going to make the best of it. Okay? I have nowhere to go today. I'm going to put my wig on. I'm going to put some lashes on. I have no one to cook for. I'm going to go cook myself some breakfast. Okay? I have no one to go to the movies with later on. But guess what? I want to go see that movie. I'm going to get up and go watch that movie. I'm going to pay and I'm going to go to the movies by myself. And guess what? I'm going to treat myself to dinner. Okay? You have to wake up and you have to just say one day, I love me so much that I don't need any outside influences. I do not need social media. I do not need to be justified. Okay? The only thing I need is the love within me, because I assure you, once you start loving yourself, you will start portraying that outwardly. People will start to see that, and the people that you will need to have in your space, that you want to have in your life, that you desire to have in your circle will happen. But it has to start within first. You got to work on the inside, and then everything else outside will naturally just gravitate towards you, and you will be at the place in your life exactly where you need to be. But it's not going to happen overnight. It's not. Stop thinking that you're going to wake up and you're going to be this fabulous person tomorrow. Okay, I am fabulous. Am I fabulous? Absolutely, I'm fabulous. Did this happen overnight? Absolutely, it did not. Okay, I did not wake up like this, people. Okay, and that's what you need to understand. And it's okay to not be where I am, because my journey took 15 years. You're on day one. Stop trying to be in my 15-year journey when you haven't even started yet. So once you start and once you get to that place in your life, I assure you, things will fall into place. And you know what will happen when you do have those bad days, when you do have people that come into your life that just aren't good for you. You're in such a secure place within yourself that you'll be able to see those signs. You'll be able to recognize these demons that are coming to try to suck the life out of you. You will realize these things at that place in your life. And like I said, it's okay that it hasn't happened yet. Just take it one day at a time. Rome was not built in a day, honey, and it's not going to happen. But just know that you are here for a reason. The universe has placed you here for a reason, to be on this earth, to be in this live right now, to be able to watch the replay of this, to be able to be in the chat right now, to be able to tell your friends about this conversation that we had today, to be able to remove yourself out of the toxic situation that you are in right now. Everything happens for a reason, and you have to always remember that. And you have to remember that you are worthy, you are love, you are light, and you are good. but you have to believe it first. No one else can believe it. Why would you expect anyone else to believe it if you don't believe it yourself? So you have to start today. You have to start within. You have to start that love and build and grow that love today within you.
Oh, so powerful. Cameo, last words.
Yeah, I mean, that was amazing.
Yes.
Yes. Support 100 all the way. What I wanted to say that I think her and I both share is, you know, for the others out there that that are also parents, right? When you wake up and it's hard and you're like, I can't do this anymore, you need to look at those little faces and you need to say, these people are counting on me and they need me. And knowing that so many things happen from childhood trauma and so many things happen, right, for people that are that do, you know, hideous acts later in life. Don't perpetuate that lifestyle, right? That was another reason that I did get out, because in my mind, having a daughter as well, I'm like, I want the person that I'm with to be the man that my daughter wants to marry, right? I want the person that I'm with for my son to grow into him. And when I looked at that person that I was with, I was like, there's no flipping way. I'm going to let my children be like this. I will not let her marry him, and I will not let him be that type of man. So if you're having those doubts or those concerns, or you're like, I can't find it within me, look at those little faces and know that they are looking up to you because you are their everything, no matter what, whether you're broken or whether you're healed, and just use them for that strength to get up and go.
Oof. Yes. Powerful, powerful words. I want to thank you both for, you know, joining me today, having the courage to speak up. I applaud the strength that you two have. I know a lot of people are going to benefit from this. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Special thanks to everyone else that showed up in the audience, and anyone who may watch this in the future. Thank you all so much, so much. If we ever want to do this again, Cameo or Sabrina, let me know. We can touch on, you know, more specific topics.
I am a plug for myself. I am writing a book right now. I'm having it ghostwritten by a writer out in LA, whose name I'll keep on the DL for now. But he might have written Kevin Hart's last book. And so I'm hoping plus or minus in a year. I got some other things I got to finish up in the interim. And my story will be published. So
what chapter are we on right now?
So we thought things were wrapped up until this latest and greatest incident happened. There are about 19 chapters. Last time I saw the draft, we had to reswizzle some things. And so I'm thinking, you know, this will be it for now. Who knows where it's going to go from here? But it's all about resilience. It's all about overcoming these type of obstacles, especially as women. So yeah, it'll be good.
Would you mind if people reached out to you, Cameo?
No, totally fine.
All right, I'll post your IG in the
totally
description.
I will say that ironically, so my IG is locked down just for the people that are out there. So if I get a little shady in terms of you reaching out to me, I'm like, I don't know you, because I got my kids and stuff on social media. But I have met just through like tags when I was going through my stuff in terms of like Narc Survivor and that type of thing. And again, there's a woman from Tennessee that's like always, thank you for your messages. Thank you for your inspiration. Thank you. I have to get out. I don't know how to get out, you know, and that's what people like Sabrina and I are here for. We've been there.
Sabrina, how can we get in touch with you?
So all my handles are, as you can see right here, Miss Sabrina Seoul. I do have a YouTube channel as well. My YouTube channel is Miss Sabrina Seoul. Instagram, Miss Sabrina Seoul. Twitter, Miss Sabrina Seoul. And Facebook, Miss Sabrina Seoul. And anytime you guys want to reach out, pretty much all my pages are public. And Tyrone and I, you know, we do the live watch parties. during the season 5 of Ready to Love. So we do spend a lot of time during that. Every week we see each other. So definitely follow me, guys. I would love for you to follow my journey into the next stage in my life, and with my daughter and I. So, and I am a single mom, so it's definitely always interesting.
Whew. Yes. All right, we are gonna close it out for real this time. Definitely reach out to Cameo and Sabrina if you have any questions or comments. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to help out, provide resources, what have you. So thank you all again for joining us.
Thank
See
you
you all
for
soon.
having us.
All right.
Thanks, Tyrone, for the opportunity.
Mhm.